And welcome to the last part of our Corona procedural materials tutorial. In this part we're going to take a look at how to create some sand dunes material. I think maybe some of you who ever had to do some sort of sand dunes or like sand landscape, you've always found, or some of you may have found that when you were, no matter what parameter you were tweaking, the sand, didn't quite look right, and it always looked kind of CG. The trick here is that sand is basically just a large amount of really tiny particles, and as light bounces between them, it scatters. So the base component for the good-looking sand is always subsurface scattering. So the scene I've set up is just some plane that has extruded border downwards and another plane intersecting it. That's because subsurface scattering in Corona always needs some well-defined volume, otherwise it's gonna give you really weird results. I'm gonna show you what I mean right now. If I just assign the material, I'll make it completely transparent. And if I enable scattering, you see now it looks right, but as soon as I would isolate the object, you can see the volume gets calculated only when there's a clear definition of a surface where a ray can enter and exit in the same row, basically. If a ray only enters but then doesn't exit and falls somewhere in the background environment, it's not going to calculate correct volume and correct scattering. Therefore, you should always have some enclosed area where the subsurface scattering can really happen. So if we take a look at the reference, we can see there's like slight sort of light fall off on the top sharp parts or the ridges of the dunes. So now that we have basic subsurface scattering set up, we can just play with the absorption distance to get it looking right. I would start with 1 meter and position camera somewhere, and you can see there's that nice like blending of the light and shadow in this nice soft line, and that's exactly what you need to get some nice looking subsurface scattering and some nice looking sand. Maybe increase this to 1.5. I think 1 will do. And now we can just set the color to be more sand like. And let's copy this color, paste it to the diffuse. And now let's set opacity back to 1. And the component we will use for the translucency, the subsurface scattering to show up will be translucency. So just let's say translucency to 1. Maybe tint the translucency too. And it's too much. Just slightly. And well, actually, let's try if we use refraction, set it to something really low, and use only 50% of refraction and 50% of translucency. We can just combine those two effects together. Copy this to the refraction color as well. And maybe make the subsurface color more saturated. And just slowly increase the influence of subsurface scattering in our material. This is starting to look nice. Obviously this is more saturated, so we can do some slight color correction to get closer to what we see on the image. And make this warmer perhaps. Okay, we have nice golden sand. We can again control density of the sand. It kind of depends on the scale of your scene, but let's go with this. Now let's create another map. We're gonna use noise and plug this into bump slot and increase the bump to 10, really overkill it for now. Let's take a look at our surface. All right, so let's set the bump to turbulence, make it really large, increase the levels, and let's just stretch it along single axis. That's the wrong one. We want this one. That looks kind of nice, but now let's make it just very, very subtle. Like this. Maybe make those even shorter. And let's try to make this more sharper, the ridges, by modifying the curve like this. Okay, this looks already like sand. And now I'm gonna try to find some nice angle to view our dunes from. Actually, let's try to introduce some more variation into our terrain. Decrease the size of the bump map as well, so we kind of modify the entire scale. The displacement may be too much in this case, so let's decrease that as well. There we go. Change our field of view so we can see more of the stuff going on in our view. Alright, this is kind of nice angle, so I'm gonna create camera here, lock the camera. Oops. Something didn't go as I expected. So again, select the camera. 90 degrees, definitely not, more like 54 degrees. Adjust the camera. Again, orient the camera. Yeah, lock the camera, that's the right button. I may have pushed the wrong one before. Now I'm gonna set this to my camera view. I'm gonna lock this to my camera view so that I can freely move in this camera view. Disable targeted sun, and now I can just rotate with sun and find some nice angle for my dunes. Let's take a look here. Maybe try to Yep, this looks nice. Play with the bump once more. I will increase the levels, but at the same increase the size of the map. Let's put it back and let's just stretch it further like this, and maybe amplify the bump slightly. or actually this always requires some tweaking. But yeah, this is starting to look pretty nice. I'm gonna rotate this. Like this. Okay, that looks better. And now the last thing we can do to push this a little further, I'm gonna create an atmospheric apparatus, box gizmo. Just take it here. And let's restart our, let's first just add a volume fog, pick the gizmo, start our interactive, and let's set up some dust over our desert. So let's set this to exponential, fall off, so fall off is more gradual. Also, we can increase the highlight compression so it's not completely blown out. And as for the color, actually the native 3ds Max volume fog doesn't support exposure, so we need to do a little trick here. We're gonna set sun intensity to 0.1. We're gonna set skylight intensity to 0.1 as well. And now we are going to increase our exposure. Actually, there we go. And now we can play with the fog. Set it to turbulence. And let's just give it some sand color. I may want to invert it and increase the scale to like 50. Make it even less dense. I'm just playing with the step size parameters to get some more detail. The lower these two are, the less kind of cuts when the ray flies through the volume, the less cuts it will do, and the volume will look like it's just procedural texture applied on the surface, not really in the volume. But I think default values actually work quite fine. So now just increase, or I think I will just increase density slightly and call it a day. So now let's just render our final image. Obviously, subsurface scattering takes a while to render, so it's gonna take a while to render first pass, but once it's rendered, it should look quite nice and quite clean. Alright, so you can see we have some nice sand with some nice subsurface scattering and some dunes. And I think this is it for the procedural textures or procedural materials tutorial in Corona. I hope you found it useful, and I'll see you next time.